Welcome to the Game of Life podcast, where we bring you inspiring softball stories, insightful tips from coaches and players, and explore how the game transcends its boundaries to become a metaphor for life. Whether you're a sports enthusiast, a casual fan, or someone just looking for inspiration, you're in for a treat. We'll unravel the tales that go beyond the scoreboard. Discover how perseverance and hard work on the field translates into resilience in your daily challenges. Learn about teamwork, leadership, and the unwavering spirit that fuels success, not just in sports, but in the game of life. Hey, this is a fun little crossover for me because we have Matt Hufnagel, who we have our own podcast, Anecdotes for Success, season 4, pushing 130 episodes, and we're bringing him in for a collab with the famous Allie Richmond and our podcast, Game of Life. Matt, how are you?
I'm really good. It's fun to be fun to have this collab, like you said. So I'm looking forward to it.
Are you nervous?
I'm don't take any offense, but no, I'm not nervous.
Yeah, we're really scary people. So
And so I'll start, and Allie's like you are, Matt. I try to get my questions in, and then she'll dominate it with all the questions. You know, I guess I'm not an alpha of podcasting, and that's okay. I'm the facilitator. We stress a lot in this podcast. It's the game of life because uh, so many life lessons and competitive fires in sports can transform and be a platform and a springboard to everything else you do in life. And what we find sometime, we both, I was telling you off the air a little how there's people that put all this time and effort into sport, and then when it's over, they feel lost.
Yeah.
And it's like an identity thing. And I thought you could start by just saying how competitive you were, how you were supposed to be a pro basketball player, right?
I was basketball was my identity. Yeah, I mean it was what
Yeah.
I mean we're you were joking about it before, and I don't know, Allie, if you know this, but at 15 years old, my older brother told me I'd never dunk a basketball, and I jump roped every single day in other workouts. But just to give you a sense, jump roped every single day for 45 minutes a day for the next 14 years, never missing a day. I mean, I'm sure I missed a day in there at some point. I did have open heart surgery at that point, which is why my athletic career was cut short, which was frankly a blessing, I think, in a lot of ways. But just to give you a sense of my personality and how I'm wired, I jump rope. Try jumping rope for 45 minutes. Try doing it for 5 minutes straight and tell me what your calves feel like. I did
yeah,
it for 45 minutes for 14 years straight, before I stopped doing it every single day. I mean, Christmas morning, jumping rope. Birthdays, that didn't matter. I was away on trips, jump ropes with me. I mean, no breaks, zero. And it wasn't because someone was threatening me. That was my level of commitment. That was, and obviously I was able to dunk a basketball by the time I was 17 years old, so I accomplished it within a couple of years.
Mhm.
But then it was like, now I can get better. Now I can jump higher. Now I can do more. All those types of things. So I'm a lunatic like that. Some people might think, but I'm just a committed person. If I want something, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna do what it takes to do it. So yeah, Paul, that was we were talking about off air, but that's a true story. That's just a fact.
So,
Honestly, knowing you, how in the time I have, Matt, that doesn't surprise me given the work ethic that you have. It's an awesome story, but I feel like it's probably a testament to in all aspects of life. If you give a certain amount of time to something every day, over and over and over again, you're eventually going to see payoff from it. And that's not just in jump roping, obviously, that's in life.
It,
So
it's the perfect analogy for anything you want out of life. I
yeah.
just put in the work every single day. I could have jumped rope for 3 hours, for a month, and that would have been great, but it wouldn't have meant anything over time, right? It's everyday consistency. Boom, boom, boom. And you know that as an athlete, and Paul, you of course know that, but that is I get this, and you guys might too. Like, what's your advice? What's the trick? What's the formula? Consistency every single day. Or, I'm not saying never take a break, but I didn't.
I always tell athletes it's never one time. So if you miss a day, it's not the end of the world, but don't let that compound to a second day. Or a third day, whatever. So you can
A
listen,
habit.
if you took 4 days off or a month off within that time, it doesn't matter over 14 years.
Paul,
But
it
most
wouldn't
people don't start.
right, it wouldn't have changed a thing except for the only threat that I had was does it change my mindset? And now I take 4 more days off and then I decide to take a week and then maybe it's a month. And before you know it, I'm sitting on the couch eating potato chips and I hadn't jumped rope in 6 months and now the whole thing's shot. I mean, I think I've told you this story before. I have a habit of picking up, if I see a penny in a parking lot, I pick up that penny. Like I picked one up the other day. I don't need that penny, but my mindset is those are the habits that make me successful in whatever it happens to be. There is no, I don't need to do that now. I try to be a good person. I try to care about my neighbors or my community or whatever it is. I'm driving to get ice cream with my daughter earlier today, and there's a garbage can that blew off in my neighborhood in the middle of the road. I stop, I get out, I pick up the garbage can, I take it over, I put the lid on it, and if I go, I could have zipped around it, but as soon as you zip around it once, maybe you zip around it twice, and then you're not. Then it's a penny thing, it's a jump roping thing. It's a mindset.
Yeah. Well, speaking of success and mindsets, Matt, do you want to give us a quick little background on yourself for the folks online? Just, obviously we all know each other pretty well, but just give us some background, your athletic career growing up, what you do now, how you know my dad, things like that.
Wait,
Yeah,
he's
Whatever you want to dive in.
great
he's not a
question.
professional jump roper?
I know. I hate to, sorry, I spoiled it.
I grew up in the same neighborhood as your father, and we've known each other a long, long time now, Paul. And you were a little older than me in high school, and or a little older than me, and kind of lost touch throughout high school because that's what happens when someone's older. And you're not, I'm not, wasn't cool enough at that point, but um, you know
Yeah,
your dad and
certainly.
I have known each other a long time, Allie, as you know, and I growing up, my identity, all I cared about sports, basketball in particular, but volleyball and tennis and in particular, and I was like a lot of young people. That's all I cared about. Focus on school isn't. When I say an afterthought, I mean I got fined. I passed. I wasn't an A student, but I didn't care as long as there was a basketball in my hand. Then nothing else mattered to me. But I was diagnosed at a young 2 years old with a heart condition, and they didn't quite know where that was going to head. But by the time I hit ninth grade, I was told that I would not be able to play varsity basketball, which could have, soccer was my other sport. I love soccer, and I wasn't allowed to play soccer either. And that could have been devastating to me. But I think it was my upbringing and my parents, my dad in particular, just said, basically his attitude was always like, hey, life's tough. It's going to throw you curveballs. What are you going to do? Cry about it? Or are you going to make something out of this? There's positives in everything. What can you do about this? In a positive way. What can you control? Don't worry about what you can't control. What can you control? So I actually ended up going to Cortland for my undergrad, and I actually believe this won't be a surprise. I actually in track class, the track coach saw me jump and asked me to join the track team as a high jumper, which I did for a few months before the NCAA came in because of my heart situation. Said no, we're not doing it. Too much liability. That was the end of my short collegiate, uh, athletic career. But again, it led me in a direction of, okay, now what am I going to focus on? What can I be competitive in? What will mean something? What matters? And that's how I got into business. It's initially sports management in business, and that was a path I decided to head down. And And, there's a tremendous opportunity to be competitive in the world of business. And as Paul and I were talking before you got on, business is interesting versus sports because, Allie, if you're out there playing softball game, it's you against someone else, right? And you get a hit or you get out, and it's a zero-sum game. You succeed or you fail, right? You win or you lose. Well, business doesn't have to be like that. And now I've gotten in the business. I own 37 Subway restaurants. I own a tremendous amount of real estate, at least in my opinion. I own a
Yeah.
promotions business. I'm involved in a lot of different businesses, and I love it. But I don't have to kill my competitor. I don't have to put that competitor out of business for me to succeed. It's me against me. It's kind of like golf in some way, Paul. Um, I'm playing against myself and what I want out of life and what I want for my family and my future and those kinds of things. I don't have to take out, my competitors and see them go bankrupt for me to succeed. So I can focus on what matters to me and what I want to do. And that unlike sport is really I like that aspect of it. I don't have to. I do like going up against other people in a sporting environment. Don't get me wrong, but the difference here is it's important to recognize.
Yeah, that's actually really cool because I feel like you can focus on your own personal growth as opposed to who do I need to get past on my way to be successful, which I feel like is just not a good mindset to have. And I think it's really cool to be in the nature of I'm going to focus on me and my development and then lift other people up along the way too. Like, not only is it me or you, it's both of us together can be successful.
That's so spot on because one of the things I enjoy about owning my own businesses is, look, you're trying to make money and all that good stuff, and you think at some point that's all that matters, right? I got to make money, and that's why I'm doing it. And then you hit a point, at least I have, and I know many people have as well, where you go, this isn't about that anymore. It's about the relationships with my coworkers, whether they, the people who work for me, um, what the business can provide to my family, to the people who work with us. We take care of hundreds of families. I have hundreds of employees. We take care of hundreds of people. That matters to me. That means something to me and my wife and my family. That's not money. That's not ego. That is to your point. What else? There's so many other things that exist in there. I don't have to worry about making as much money as possible every day for me to succeed. Success can be so many other things when you're involved in a business. And that I didn't see coming, but that's what I see now.
Yeah, and honestly, kudos to you because I think that just shows you're in it for the right reasons. And I think whether that be owning your own business or manager in corporate America, like your employees spend more time at work than they do most likely anywhere else for a majority of their life. So I think it's awesome that you realize like the impact that you could have, good and bad, on someone's life like that. And I think when you manage people or you own a business or you're a coach, like relating it back to sports too, like you hold a life in your hands to some regard. And I think it's important to one, acknowledge that, and then two, do something about it too.
Yeah, there's tremendous responsibility there, and yeah, so I agree with everything you say, and even though people might have the wrong impression about business people per se, I think often, but it is much deeper than dollars and cents.
You said it's a zero-sum game in athletics, which it is during a competition, but
Hmm.
I find a lot of similarities that the best teams love and support and prop each other up within their culture. And then they don't seem to worry about the zero-sum game playing against other teams because they do win more than they lose. So I think sometimes if athletes would get the mindset that it's more about helping your teammates, you don't worry about the zero sum, just like in a business, and you're just trying to get better. But so many people aren't wired that way.
Oh, it's such a good point. I'm reading a book right now. It's a leadership book, and it talks about just that type of thing. And the best organizations, let's call it, whether we're talking business, school systems, non-for-profits, sports teams, whatever, they're all there's no coincidence. It's we've got a goal kind of thing here. And and that can be so difficult to achieve from a cultural standpoint inside your organization, because Allie's got a career she's thinking about, and that means she needs to. I'm just making this up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That means well, I need the next promotion, and it's gonna be me against so and so Steve who down the hall or whatever, and Matt owns his own business, and all I care about is my bottom line, right, and how much money I can make, and forget everyone else's concerns and worries in their lives. It's about Matt and his money. And Paul, you just want the most wins as a coach for, whatever organization you're coaching. It's about wins and trophies and those kinds of things. I think what we'd all find to be true, and it certainly seems to play out, is the organizations that are going to succeed, it's when to the extent that you can, there's a bigger picture here. We're pulling together. It's about us. It's about the we. And I know it's cliche, and I know you hear it, but sports is a great example. Allie, I'd be interested in your thought on this. I mean, do you ever just have those teams where you're on them, and even early in the year you go, this is different. This is different. Everything, this is, and we're all going in the right direction. And it's not who takes the most shots or gets the most innings or what. It's more of that we, and that's what any good organization, successful organization has.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with that. And I think too, growing up in athletics helped me, I guess I'll call it in the real world now, like identify people like that too and say, hey, like I really like the type of teammate they are, coworker they are. Like I'm gonna navigate toward them because I want to be like that, as opposed to, oh, other people are pulling me their direction, but they maybe have some tendencies that I don't love or I don't want for myself. So I think growing up in athletics, it helped me kind of recognize how valuable that is and how much of a growth, opportunity that is for me to surround myself with people like that who are going to just lift me up and make me better too.
I agree. And here I am at 49 years old, and I'm a slow learner. So I'm seeing those things in ways, and the results of that in ways. I'm just much more intentional about it than I previously was. So,
Yeah.
but I just think it's important that people try to maybe consider that a bit more, because then everyone goes farther that way.
Yeah. I think too, just adding one more thing and then Dad, I'll turn it over to you. I think you talked about how you're very impactful with your relationships with your coworkers or your employees. And I think that's really special too, because that's what the best teams do or the best leaders do. Like you have an individual relationship with every single member of your team and every single one looks different. Like to me, that is one of the most important things in life is the individual relationships you have with people. And I think about often I saw a quote like if at the end of your life, everyone that you've ever met sat down in a stadium, like you would fill the place. Like you have much more of an impact than you ever know. And it's just those individual, meaningful conversations, connections. Like you think about stuff that, meaningful conversations that you've had in past years. Some people probably don't even remember those with you, but for some reason they resonated with you. And I think it's really powerful when you start to think about it like that and think about the impact that you truly can have just in those what seem mundane conversations.
Very true.
Yeah, I don't care if you're the star of a team, the CEO of a company, the rising finance star, valedictorian of your class. When you walk in a room, everybody talks about not being the smartest person in the room. We get that. I mean, sometimes you might be the smartest. I mean, that's just the way it is. But I'll tell you what, when I walk in a room, I'm going to have the most energy in the room. That's what I strive for, because I think that the energy creates energy. We all know, all three of us can identify people in our life that drain us. And I don't know how you fix that. You can't always avoid it, but I know if you come with a lot of energy, that fixes it a little bit, because it shows how much they're draining you and everybody else if you bring more energy. Are you following me there, or did I ramble a little too much?
No, I certainly follow you, and it leads me to it made me think of, the thing that I can bring into a conversation, whether it's one-on-one, a meeting, there's an authenticity that you can bring that if it's authentic, by definition, that you can't create any other way. And there is, Allie, you were just pointing to it. I have individual relationships with dozens and dozens and dozens of people on my team. And and the feedback I get from them and the responses I get from them, because those relationships are authentic and genuine. I don't say the same thing to everyone because it's easy. I don't cut corners with the conversations because I'm busy. They're authentic. What you get out of people, and I don't mean that in a manipulative way. I mean, get out of people in a relationship, just like you get things out of each other in your relationship. That authenticity, there's nothing more powerful than that. And Paul, that there's a level of energy to that, and productivity to it, that you cannot fake it. It's impossible, and we can all feel it. And so that's what that made me think about.
I'm curious too, Matt, and people in the business world, I think it's a stigma that sometimes as you become more successful, that authenticity might drop off a little bit. So I'm curious your thoughts on that, if that truly is just a stereotype or if it's something that you've experienced with, people as well.
Yeah, I'm fortunate. I have a lot of relationships with people who are highly successful, people I look up to very
Yeah.
much so, and what they've accomplished. And there is a consistency in their authenticity. And I think it's more of a, whether it's people get envious or whatever they might be, and it's a good way to try to bring people down, knock people down. I'm not saying those people don't exist. Of course they do. I think that's the exception. I think more the rule is most people who are highly successful didn't inherit it. Statistically, that's just true. Most people got there on their own in some way, shape, or form. And if they got there on their own, the kind of commitment, hard work, and authenticity that it took to get there, it doesn't mean they didn't make mistakes. God knows I make them. But I don't think you get there faking it. I just don't believe you do. I'm sure someone has sometime, but it's like, oh, the reason athlete A is so good is because, they were just born with it. They probably were born with something, but I don't, you don't accomplish some of those things just because of that, in most cases. I think the thing that stands out to me with a lot of these highly successful people I have the privilege of knowing quite well is they, these are the kind of people, Ellie, when I haven't seen them in months, how's your baby? I know you and your wife just went on a trip last time I saw you. How was it? Did you go to the restaurant? I text you. There is a level of connection and care there that, well, I just don't get from most other people. And that's okay. I don't need it, but it's no accident. So I think that most people like that, you don't get people working hard for you, staying with you, caring about your business if you don't treat them right. That's one of the reasons I just love business and capitalism so much, is because I have to treat you right for you to put in the level of work and provide value to me as a business, whether you're my employee, or whether you're my customer. The day I stop treating you well, you leave me like that. And that's fair. I don't have any problem with that. You can go to my competitor, you can do whatever, but it's on me to provide value. I'm not sitting there going, I pay you, therefore you better come to work and do whatever, or whatever the case may be. It's my responsibility to provide value to you so that you keep coming. And that is a tremendous responsibility. But man, boy, does that put you in a mindset that I'm here to serve you, not the other way around. And most successful business people I know have the same exact mindset. I'm serving other people. And the minute I stop doing it, all this stuff that I've built and all these great things that people might perceive, it all goes away. So it's that's what I see.
So I'm thinking that the athletes that have the hardest time maybe finding their identity after their sport are the ones that weren't doing this during their sport. Because if you're building your teammates up, if you're looking out for the best of your team, if you're trying to better yourself every day and not comparing yourself to other people, and that's what you qualify as hard work, it's probably an easy transition when you're done playing sports. But if you're playing a sport and it's just all about you, all about you, all about you, the business world doesn't care that it's all about you.
No, I was giving that some thought, Paul, and why do so many athletes have a difficult time with the transition and because especially because so many are competitive in nature and are used to working hard, right? Are used to putting in the time, are used to making the sacrifices, right? And I know for me and a lot of my friends, we love to hire former athletes because they're not afraid to put in the work, right?
Yeah.
So those are great qualities, but is it a lack of the same type of gratification you get from being an athlete, the same kind of, let's call it, attention? I don't know. I'm just asking questions. I truly don't know. Why do people who work so hard understand that it takes more effort to succeed because they've had to do it
With no guarantees. With
with,
no
with
guarantees.
no guarantees? Why does that not always translate that much? Now it certainly can, but what would be that? Is it they've been in a doing something else so long it's hard for the transit? It's a great question. I'm just not sure the answer.
I was just gonna say, to chime in, I almost feel like it's a fish out of water situation. Like you're
Mhm.
just so locked into what you're doing for so long that you step out of it and you're like, well, I didn't know what I was doing wasn't normal. Like I just thought that that's how life is,
Mhm.
like it's
Mhm.
just we go up at 6 every day and I go to lift. I don't care if I'm tired or I'm sore or whatever. I get up and now I wake up and every single part of your day is different. Like the adversity is different, the people are different, what you're doing is different. You're not playing a sport
Mhm.
anymore. You're going to work for the thing that you've been studying for 6 years, however long. I think it's literally just nothing can translate except the skills that you learn, which is why it's so important to kind of have that in your core to be like, okay, like I remember this time in my sport when I felt like this and I got through it using XYZ tools in my toolkit, and that's what I'm going to use in life. But it's so odd that it's literally like it's like you step out the door, you look back, everything's still going on without you. Like that university still has a softball team and they still play without me. Like it's still
Right.
going on, then time is moving, but I'm outside of it now.
Mm.
I think like that was just my perspective. It's like, this is weird. But because you have the perspective, and I had people in my life say, hey, like it's bigger than sports, it's bigger than this, like it's the person you're becoming, that allowed me to move on because I was like, yep, you know what, I see it in the rear view, but I also see things ahead of me
Sure.
too. So I think it gets dangerous in my perspective when you don't see anything ahead of you, you just step out and you're like, where do I go from here?
Do you think that's a nature that's a issue? I'm not sure the right word. Is that an upbringing thing? Is that a family thing? Is that a teammates coaching, cultural thing, like, or it's just individuals?
I think a little bit of all of it. Like, I think it's important to have people around you that when you go through adversity in those times to say, listen, like, have a bird's eye view, see the big picture. What
Mm.
are you learning from this? Instead of only having that revelation when you're done playing. Because I feel like there were times, I mean, freshman year of high school, I look back now and I'm like, wow, I was pissed that something happened in the moment, but that gave me body armor for a situation my sophomore
Mhm.
year of college, and that prepared me for last week at work. And it's all just this big cycle. But if you don't see it that way and you just see it as like a lump sum at the end of like, oh, that was cool, I learned a lot. It's a little bit different, I think.
Well, I'll tell you, I know from both your stories, you had a lot of support at home, Matt, when you were talking about what your father said to you and Allie. I mean, you've had plenty of support and good coaches. I think this is great. I think you have to use every experience along the way. I like the term you just said, body armor.
I was gonna, me too.
Yeah.
I love that too. That I was like, that's perfect.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
You know, the old days it was thick skin, but now we're using the new
Oh,
age
right,
term, body.
right, right.
Hey, there could be a business opportunity here. I'm just saying. But
Yeah.
well,
I was gonna say I have one more question for Matt.
yep, we'll wrap it up with one more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to go back to, when you were younger and you were talking about your heart condition that, unfortunately ended your career, and what your dad said to you about, hey, like, you control what you can control, like, this is, that's all you can do. How do you feel like that's helped you in life going forward? I'm sure there's been a lot of different times, but I think that's a skill that is so easy to say that you have, but when you're actually in like the fire of those moments, it's really, really hard to actually behave like that.
Well, I don't know. I'll tell you that I find that question so interesting and so important that it just sent chills down me when you asked it for some reason, because that Paul, my father was my hero, and he's passed away. That's why I say was. It's not like he's done something stupid since then, and he's no longer.
No, no, no. He's a good man. He's a
He's
good
just
man.
he's just dead. So he's just was my hero, and you know my father didn't come from a lot at all, and he didn't have any sort of formal education, and he had this inherent ability to just capture things and communicate them. It was just natural for him. Certainly, and to me, and I have two brothers as well, and he just had this ability to simplify and capture these things and present it in a way that just made sense and worked, and it resonates with me almost daily with the things that I used to call my dad every day, at least once a day, and we would just talk, and I ask him for advice or just you know tell him what's going on, and he may say something, he may just listen and go, things like control what you can control, Matt. I mean, real quick, one time I started my first major business venture. I had $150,000 in my name. It took me years and years and years to save it, and I lost it all in 11 months. And I called my dad, and he said to me, "Yeah, that sucks." He goes, "So, what are you gonna do? Cry about it, or get up and go back to work?" And it was just like, "Yep." He wasn't being mean, Allie. He was not being
Yeah.
mean at it. He was like, take your time, have some tears, you know, be frustrated. What'd you learn? And what are you gonna do now? That was my dad. And off I went, and off to my next thing, which has led to where I'm at now. But
Yeah.
it really was a blessing, though, to answer your question, and my dad's ability to get me to focus on what I could control. And not that I'm perfect at it, because God knows I can get frustrated by things and that kind of thing. But I really go back to that all the time, and that allows me to put my energy into the right things. Even if I make a bad decision, which I do a lot as well, at least my energy is on things that I can control, and that's where my focus is. I'm not a rear view mirror guy, and I thank my dad for that. And that has its good. People often say to me, "Do you ever just look in the rear view mirror and watch how far you've come, or remember when?" And I go, "No, I don't. I just don't. I never do. I don't care to. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter to me. What I want to do is go decision, step after step, consistent day after day. There'll be a time to do that, I suppose, but it's not now, and I don't see it coming anytime soon because I've got
Yep.
way too much to accomplish to be looking in rearview mirrors. It'll just slow me down.
Mhm.
So control that control, and keep focused on the things that matter, which number one, you it's good to just control or to focus on what you can control, but far too many people put a focus on things that don't matter. There are certain things that matter in what you're doing, and there are certain things that don't. I don't put my focus on things that don't matter. I identify the things that are truly most important, in my life, in my business in particular. And I let the other things go. Even if I could control them, if they affect my bottom line by 1%, why am I spending any time there when I can focus on things that affect my bottom line by 30%, right? So I'm putting my focus in the right areas. And going through that experience and having that heartbreak, no pun intended, that went on with my health situation and all that, it was an absolute blessing in disguise for me. It allowed me to take, first of all, I was never gonna make, fulfill my dream. I mean, I would outwork anyone, but I was never gonna get where I wanted to go. I didn't know that at the time, but looking back at it now, and I wonder, God, how much time would I have wasted on that? And I'm not saying it would have been, I wouldn't have great memories and great experiences. Of course I would have. But the lessons it taught me far and away outweighed any other benefits I believe I would have gotten out of it. And one of which was just, but my dad would say that about anything. It just wasn't the hard thing. My dad was just, he knew how to take scenarios and situations and make you see them for what they were and use that going forward. So I was very fortunate in that sense. I say to people all the time, I've been giving, when you look back and go, people like, what were you given that led you to success? I go, no one's given me a nickel. I've never been given anything in my life except for the most important thing in the world. Two parents who told me I could accomplish anything I wanted if I put my mind to it. And they actually convinced me of it, Allie. Somehow they made me actually believe it. They didn't just, I don't just say that. I actually believe that I can do anything. And that was a superpower I was given from my parents.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's awesome.
Yeah,
I think
very.
we found, I think we summed up the whole episode. No rear view mirrors,
Yeah.
right?
That's
Just
how
gotta,
I live. That's how I
yeah.
live.
I wanted to call it jumping into success. Like,
Oh,
no, I'm
all right.
kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah.
That's
All right.
funny.
We could spend the next 10
I'm
minutes with all our
kidding.
silly titles. That's a blessing and a curse Allie and I both have, Matt. Allie's like the king of dad jokes.
Okay.
And,
It's
you know,
so bad. So bad.
so,
That's
hey,
great.
this
I
was
love
great.
that.
I think this will help people. I mean, you
Yeah.
have to recognize the end's coming. You can't look in the past. You have to move forward. And you can take all those good qualities and use it as a platform to jump into success. Well,
Just keep
well,
jumping. No.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Matt. Thanks. We appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Matt.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Yeah, bye.
Enjoyed it.